right, welcome back to Trib Sports After Dark, our prep football recap, as well as our The Final Whistle podcast. I'm Stefan Wiebe, the host as always, joined with Trevor, Cody, and Sam. And we are in our new studio today, recording on that feels like an official set instead of in a old photo room. So how does it feel to be in a professional setting here, guys?
I feel like I should be in a suit and tie. It's fancy.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
Cody's dressed for the
Cody
occasion.
came dressed, yeah.
I was saying earlier, this is no podcast. This is a press conference, I said. And indeed, we are the press, and we are conferring, so I suppose that applies.
Beautiful work by the team to build this whole podcast studio. This is awesome.
Yeah, this is my first time in here, and it's great. So props to what it went in to get this going here.
Honestly, it's what I would have imagined a newspaper headquarters was like when I was not working at one.
Yeah, let's just jump right into our scores from today. So we have Deer Park over Clarkston, 24-22. Moscow beating Kellogg, 66-0. Pullman over East Valley, 29-6. Colfax beating Priest River, 34-20. Deary over Lakeside, 52-14. Garfield Palouse 24, Dayton 36, Genesee 22, Wallace 18. Kendrick over Potlatch 68-0. Pomeroy over St. John Endicott 86-12. Prairie over Clearwater Valley 56-6. Timberline beating Troy 76-28, and Grangeville beating Orofino 58-2. And with that, we will turn it over to you, Sam. You were at the Kendrick Potlatch game today, covering a little White Pine League football. Kendrick still keeping a very good team off the scoreboard. Take us into the game.
Yeah, so this was the Tribune's chance and my first chance to see the undefeated Kendrick Tigers up close and personal. I went up to Potlatch, Idaho to see the Tigers take on the Loggers. And it was, kind of a contrast of head coaches. You had the 20-year-old first-year head coach Ty Kep versus Ryan Ball in his last year after almost 2 decades of coaching in the White Pine League. And so it was quite the contrast. And obviously, Potlatch also has had a great season. They entered undefeated. Kendrick entered undefeated. But there was a clear gap in the field of play in terms of the current talent level and just the current stature of each team. Kendrick won 68-0, as you heard Steph say. And so it was kind of apparent from the first snap. Kendrick scored on the very first play of the game, a 62-yard pass from Max Kirkland to Raleigh Rosasender. And then from there, it was kind of off to the races. The Tigers scored again like 2-3 minutes later on another long touchdown. Orion Stewart, running back, had 119 yards and like 2 touchdowns. Tanner Clemenhagen, our prep athlete of the week, continued to maybe make a run at back-to-back. It's probably not allowed, but he's making a run at it. He had almost 200 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, and then Cade Siflo had several catches and almost 100 yards as well, and Nathan Twite had 2 touchdowns as well, receiving. And so it was just these playmakers that they would get the ball in space, they'd make a few Loggers miss, and then the Tigers would just run down the field. They gave a huge shout out to their offensive line for working hard and putting themselves in a position to be able to run the ball effectively, get those gaps, and then be off to the races. And so Kendrick just kind of dominated. And then defensively, they pitched another shutout. Their 4th straight shutout, I believe. Yeah, the 4th straight shutout. And actually, they've outscored their opponents, I believe, 483-8 this entire season and have scored 319 unanswered points. And so Kendrick just continues to prove how dominant they are. They'll, of course, face some tough tests with Kamiai and Logos of Moscow on the schedule, but another great win for the Tigers.
So I'll ask this question because you were there, you witnessed it in person. I'll ask you and Cody this because Cody seems like he's been covering Kendrick all season as well. I mean, you mentioned the stature difference, the talent difference. Potlatch is undefeated, a really good team. Kendrick also amazing. What makes Kendrick different than these other teams?
I think it really comes down to just the experience and the number of athletes they have. I asked that question of just like, you're in open space. How are you able to make all these touchdowns happen, these long 50, 60-yard touchdowns? And Ty Kep, their head coach, said it's the quality of athletes we have. They work hard in the weight room. They also just work hard in the film room, too. Max Kirkland is like drawing up plays, suggesting some plays, their quarterback. And so they put in a lot of work, both in terms of the physical stature of the game, but also just the mental side of the game and preparing. And so in terms of just the talent level, I think it also just credit to Kendrick. Obviously, we've said it a million times. They've won 4 straight state championships. They're in the running for a 5th. That's the goal, they said, every year, and especially this year. And they just put in the work just all year round to make that happen.
So last week I was remarking that the Tigers' dominance was historic, all that sort of thing, that their run of unanswered points and their sheer dominance on the scoreboard was perhaps as good as anything they had ever done, even through all the years we've been covering their astounding success. I did look it up. Now, 2 years ago, Kendrick had a 7-game run of 426 unanswered points. So the Tigers have not yet actually matched their historic high. But they're on course. Certainly, they're they have a shot. It certainly looks like. But they do have to face probably their toughest league opponents still, with Logos and Kamei coming up. In fact, those are 2 of the other top 5 ranked teams in state media polling. So it'll be fascinating to see whether the Knights, who actually did beat Kendrick 1 game last year, the only game Kendrick has lost since before the Great Flood, the Knights might be whether they can make any dent in the Kendrick juggernaut, or whether Kamei, which in fact beat Logos a game earlier this season and is also undefeated, might be able to do so.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they stack up against those teams. But, so far, Potlatch is no slouch of a team, a very good team. And Kendrick just kept up its usual dominance. Sam, it's cool you talked to Potlatch coach Ryan Ball about Kendrick. And he, like you said in your story, this is as good of a team as he's seen. And he's been around for so long. So that says a lot coming from a coach like Ryan Ball.
Yeah. And, he kind of laid it out into the physicality question. He just said, they've got the phicality, they've got the talent, they make people miss, and they've just got the intangibles and the tangibles rather to make that happen.
And a little bit more about Potlatch. They face, for the second straight season, a very tough second half of their season here. They're also playing all the top teams coming up, and they still have to face Kamei and Logos. Mm-hmm. And last year it was a bit too much for them. I think they ended their season on a little bit of a losing streak. Mm-hmm. But it'll be interesting to see how they stack up with those other teams as well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And with that, let's move on to our next game. We'll talk a little bit about the Moscow Bears getting a big win over Kellogg, shutting those guys out. Moscow, kind of an up and down season for Moscow so far, but another big win for them. Trevor, tell us a little bit about that game.
Up and down, but still 5-2 is pretty significant. So in total, they totaled 433 yards of offense and just held Kellogg scoreless. They won 6-0, like you mentioned. They logged 216 yards and 4 touchdowns passing, plus 217 yards and 5 scores rushing. George Stott also one thing that we don't see often is kickers, and George Stott made a few extra points afterwards, so it was pretty cool to see. Wyatt Cross, freshman quarterback, Rob Bafis was excited for him coming into the season, said he was way more mature than any freshman that he's seen. Really a guy he's Sheldon Cross is the tight ends coach at Idaho's son. He's a guy that's really made a significant difference for Moscow this season and has kept them pretty much at the top or near the top of their league.
Yeah, now I'm curious because he passed for 214 yards and they had 216 total. Who had the other 2?
Yeah, good win for Moscow there, and I think we'll just keep moving along. Maybe talking a little bit about Pullman football. They got a big win as well. Mm-hmm. Cody, tell us a little bit about the Hounds.
Right, so the Hounds, who had a frustrating start to their season, going 0-4, came on strong in the second quarter of their game with East Valley of Spokane Valley today, reeling off 26 points. Today seems to have been kind of field goal day for prep football, as the Hounds also got a field goal. They're kicked by this fellow Adi Al-Shuwei, which is a newer name to me. I hope I pronounced it semi-correctly. Connor Stewart, the quarterback, rushing for 2 of their touchdowns. So East Valley does have 2 wins. I looked it up. East Valley already has 2 wins, I think both over league opponents, prior to facing Pullman. So Pullman is just sort of getting, knee-deep into the league season, 2A Greater Spokane League. They have several more games. I think they still have to face North Central and Deer Park and some of the other teams. So this could be, a promising sign for the Hounds that even though their record was ugly the first few weeks, that they may actually pan out to be, as I was saying earlier, and Trevor wanted to contest, they may indeed be panning out to be one of the better teams in the 2A Greater Spokane League this season. I think they might be, second or third in that 7-team league. Something to that effect.
Well, Deer Park scored 24 today. Clarkston scored 22. What's really showing you that Pullman could be a top team?
Well, a top team in the league. So as I said, they defeated a team that already has, I believe, 2 league wins. East Valley has already beaten 2 other teams in the 2A Greater Spokane League. Pullman beats East Valley that badly, it could probably beat at least those 2 other teams. So that puts Pullman ahead of at least 3 teams. This is a 7-team league. So right there, Pullman would be dead center in the league. If there's even one more they can beat, then they're one of the better teams in the league. There you have it.
And we don't have all their schedules right in front of us. I do believe Pullman played Deer Park already, and that was one of their losses. But it was a close game, though. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see
Double check on that.
And how that pans out. And speaking of Deer Park, we got Deer Park and Clarkston here today. Deer Park 24, Clarkston 22. So Clarkston, another loss for Clarkston, but Clarkston actually playing its first home game of the season. Got to be the last team to be playing its first home game of the season, I think.
Wow,
It's been over a month of the season, and they finally get to play at home. Tough stretch to start the season for Clarkston, but playing at home, they are getting back on the scoreboard. Got to be a tough loss for them because this is one that they probably could have won, but just the fact that they played well, played at home, and played tough, that's got to probably give the Bantams a little bit of confidence. In this one, for the Bantams, we got Dre Torpy. He had the first score of the game, a 65-yard interception return, so big explosive play there. And then there was another long touchdown for Clarkston. Quarterback Kendrick Gimlin passing to Brody Wessels, a 75-yard score. So 2 big, long scores for Clarkston, which had been shut out for several games this season. And so we'll see if this game can maybe carry over into kind of the latter half of the season for those guys. I would think Clarkston's a team that definitely, if you're just looking at the record and the scores, probably a team that's better than they look when you're just looking at their record and stuff like that.
And they gave Moscow a run for their money early in the season.
Right, right. Yeah. So maybe moving on from the Bantams we have a couple other small school teams bouncing back to the small schools who are undefeated on the season. So we got Genesee still undefeated. They had beaten Wallace. They beat Wallace 22-18.
In a battle of unbeatens.
And okay, wow. And they're 5-0. We also got Pomeroy. They beat St. John Endicott 86-12. They're 5-0, and they're beating teams by a lot of points as well. A team that probably deserves a little bit more praise. Let's see, Colfax still undefeated. They started their season a little bit later, but they're 4-0. Beat Priest River and beat an Idaho team there 34-20. And so, guys, maybe opening it up to you guys. Several undefeated teams in our area still. It's not just Kendrick. What stood out to you guys about some of these other games from undefeated teams?
So the Genesee Bulldogs down there in 1A, and another team maybe flying under the radar in that,
And worth mentioning, Genesee and Colton Co-op. We don't probably say that enough, but Colton players on the team as well.
Not sure how many Colton players they have right now. But
they have
at least one starter.
Yes.
Probably 4, I think.
Okay. Well, that explains it. Anyway, so Genesee, never 1A team, so they don't have to compete with Kendrick like we were, talking about. One of their players, who's the fellow from Genesee who won Prep Athlete of the Week earlier this season?
Was it Jackson Banks?
Jackson Banks, of course, the man who stood out for them today. So Jackson Banks told me, he had set a goal to win a state title this season. And so far, the Bulldogs have not yet, put the lie or given the sign that they cannot do that. In fact, they just defeated another undefeated team, Wallace, that was 5-0 going into this game from a different, league. So there are not all that many leagues either in the small school football. It isn't that expansive a field. So if Genesee is dominating its own local opponents and going out and dominating one of the best teams clearly from another region in Idaho, they in fact might be, Bulldogs might be among the top dogs in Idaho 1A.
Yeah, and looking at Pomeroy crushed St. John Endicott 86-12 today. They scored 54 points in the first quarter.
Alone, yes.
And then scored 32 in the third quarter to put their score up to 86. But just a leading rushing attack. They ran the ball 28 times today for a total of 267 yards. Roy McKiernan had 8 rushes for 102 yards. Vinny Vecchio ran and passed for 2 touchdowns apiece. And then also Kaiser Harris is a guy that can't go unnoticed. He also had a couple touchdowns today and was important on their 2-point conversions. Pomeroy is going to compete in the Southeast 1B league and just maybe 1B in general.
I think they're going to win that league. They've tended to run. This has been the way it's been with Pomeroy for a while. They've been out there putting up the big numbers, winning a lot locally, and then they run in. There's some big dogs. I think. Liberty of Richland or something like that. Liberty Christian, is it? A couple of these teams out there in Washington 1B have tended to stop Pomeroy in the postseason. But, yeah.
And then the next one was Colfax. Colfax beat Priest River 34-20. Colfax is 4-0 on the season. There was 2 really important players in this game. Riker Reed, he racked up 3 touchdowns passing and 2 rushing. And then another player that Coach David Kofer spoke about was Aslan Burt, who, by the way, is a 2, maybe 3-sport athlete, plays baseball as well. Oh. He came up with 2 interceptions and a fumble recovery, which David Kofer said swung the momentum of the game just totally. That's when they really took control, was after those. And yeah, Colfax staying undefeated and are looking good against Priest River.
And one more thing to add, there is still one more area undefeated football team that did not make this week's roundup, as I guess Kamei Cubs were not playing. But again, Kamei in 2A, same league as Kendrick, pulled off a big win over the Logos Knights earlier this season in a 22-20 nail biter, and has otherwise been dominant. Kamei is actually at number 2 in the Idaho State media polling that Sam votes in. It could actually be looking at a Kamei Kendrick, showdown for league and or state titles in the very near future.
Yeah, and maybe one other game just to mention real quickly. We don't have a whole lot of 3A teams, but Grangeville playing Orofino is always a big game, and Grangeville 58-2 over Orofino in that one. Both teams having a little bit of a rough season, but Grangeville really dominating that game. They get back on with the win. That team that actually beat Moscow early in the season.
Yeah.
And so they're 3-4, and definitely always a big game for those 2 teams there.
Did they lose 4 straight after the first 2 wins? Is that correct?
That sounds right. Yes, in fact, they definitely won their first 2, and they're now 3-4.
So a big bounce back win
yes.
for Grangeville.
Turning it around, they had a promising start and then just a disastrous run. So yes,
there was 2 safeties in this game too, right?
Back-to-back safeties in the third quarter. First, Grangeville scored a safety. Then Orofino claimed its only points of the game on a safety. I wish I could have seen it, but it might have been the only chance ever to see such a thing in your life, I feel.
I don't know if I've not covered a game that has happened. And with that, I'll open it up to you guys for your players of the week. How about starting with you, Trevor?
Yeah, I would love to say that I want to go with Riker Reed from Colfax, who had 5 total touchdowns, but I feel like the defensive ball needs some love here too. I'm going to go with Aslan Burt of Colfax. With those 2 interceptions and that big fumble recovery to just really change momentum and shift the game for Colfax here. That's my player of the week, Aslan Burt, a guy who's important on defense and making plays on defense.
How about you, Cody?
All right, well, I was going to go with Wyatt Cross of Moscow, but now that you snubbed him, I'll have to take Riker Reed of Colfax. 5 touchdowns. He in fact, was involved either on the rushing or passing side in all of Colfax's touchdowns on the day. And that was critical to the Bulldogs earning their 5th consecutive win to start this season.
White Cross had 4 touchdowns, right?
Yeah, so clearly
he's worth a
Reed is
shot
the
at.
superior choice anyway.
No, indeed. Okay, that's fair.
How about you, Sam?
I have to go with senior running back Tanner Clemenhagen of the Kendrick Tigers. He racked up nearly 200 yards, 197 yards on just 5 carries, 2 touchdowns. He had a 96-yard run where, like, Kendrick's. It was this amazing punt from Potlatch, 56 yards to like pin Kendrick at the 4-yard line. And all they do is snap the ball, first play, hand it to Clement Hagen. He breaks through the seam and then just like is off for the races and is in for the touchdown. And so Clement Hagen, he said anytime you're able to scrape 200 yards, it's a huge accomplishment. He gave a shout out to his linemen once again. And Tanner Clement Hagen, shout out to you. You're the Tanner Clement Hagen of the Kendrick Tigers is my player of the week.
All right, and I'll go with one as well. How about going with a Pomeroy player? Let's go with Rory McKiernan for my pick. 102 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also had an 85-yard reception touchdown as well. And Pomeroy scores 86 points in their win over St. John Endicott. And with that, we will wrap up here. Thanks for joining us, and we will be back next week with some more football. For those watching on the podcast, stay tuned for some. Well, actually, not this week. No, it's a bye for Idaho and Wazoo on the college football side. I guess maybe Sam and Trevor. Any real quick thoughts on the college football so far this season for the Cougs and the Vandals?
I mean, we did do some grading pieces this week. And looking at the Cougs, like they're like C students, like a lot of Wazoo. Sorry, Wazoo. I can say that. I'm allowed to. But it's gonna be Wazoo has a really tough schedule. They're facing number 4 Ole Miss next week, number 24 Virginia, and those you can kind of chalk those up to be losses. Prove me wrong, Cougs. That'd be more fun. But they're probably going to be 3 and 4 after this, and so after those 2 weeks, and so the real measure will be how well can they do, how good can they do with the rest of the season, and so. Obviously they had the quarterback turnover. Now they have Zevi installed. Maybe we'll see some consistency there. But for the Vandals, though, I mean, they got kind of the whole season ahead of them with the Big Sky slate.
Yeah. So they just entered Big Sky play last week against Montana. They lost 41-30. Now they're playing Northern Colorado, and then Eastern Washington is up next, and then just the rest of the Big Sky basically is next for Idaho. It's looking up for the Idaho. Their schedule kind of weakens. It becomes a little bit easier for them for the rest of the season. They should win most of their games, if not all of their games coming up. I grading them, I gave them a B on offense so far, and I think I gave them a C+ on defense so far. I need to see significant improvement on defense and tackling in general, and then the offense just needs to get going earlier. And if they get going earlier, then they should win most of these games coming up for them in the Big Sky.
So it's football or nothing. No
Indeed.
football games. You don't even do your podcast. You can't talk about anything else. Of course not.
Well,
LC volleyball bounced back. Shout out Warriors. Yeah,
maybe you guys can pick some other stuff to talk about
that's
on
true.
Monday.
Yeah.
But with that, that'll do it for us for now. So thanks for watching, and come back again next week.